Ever since I was a 5-year-old boy, I've dreamt of going to Antarctica. Where I used to sit at the dinner table, my father would talk to me about the adventures of Captain Scott or the adventures of Lord Nelson as a young sailor up in Spitsbergen being chased by polar bears. They left an indelible mark on me. They left a mark on me and a great desire that one day I would go to the poles and try and do something special there. I think we've entered a new era in polar exploration, and it's about pushing physical boundaries, just seeing just how far the human body can go. If you had told Captain Scott or Ernest Shackleton or Nansen Amundsen 100 years ago that there would be people swimming down in Antarctica or swimming up in the Arctic, I think they would have told you that absolutely impossible.
I grew up in England, and when I was 16 we moved out to Cape Town in South Africa, and it was just wonderful to be next to the coast. I had my first proper swimming lesson then, and a month later I swam from Robben Island back to Cape Town. This swim took me 3 hours to complete, and I barely made it. And I often look back and wonder how very different my life would have been had I not made it. I wonder whether I'd had the courage to go back into the water and try swimming. Perhaps I'd never have done another swim again. For 20 years I'd been going around the world and trying to be the first person to swim around these famous landmarks, the Cape of Good Hope, North Cape, down Sogner Field. But to me the ultimate landmark was Antarctica, that frozen continent at the bottom of the world. And I wanted to break the world record for the most southern swim ever undertaken. I came to Cape Town to meet Professor Tim Noakes. I'd heard that he was a world expert on human performance in extreme temperatures, and I wanted to get his advice. Was this swim possible? The biggest challenge with swimming off Antarctica is obviously the cold.
For many years my focus was on exercise in the heat, but what Lewis has provided us with is the opportunity to study the human body in extreme cold. All the experiments we've done show that it's safe for him to exercise for 20 minutes in water temperatures down to 2 degrees centigrade. What we don't know is if he swims at colder conditions, whether it's still safe. The moment he dives into ice-cold water, his skin temperature drops to 2 or 3 degrees centigrade. That tells his brain that this is a dangerous environment and he must please get out of the water immediately. Lewis, in order to be able to swim, has to override his central governor. The central governor is a regulator which determines whether it is safe to continue exercising under certain conditions. Now, what is different about Lewis is that he raised his body temperature from 37 to 38 before he swims without doing any activity and without shivering. And we call that non-shivering thermogenesis. In other words, he's generating heat without shivering. And we've discovered that when he swims, his temperature drops roughly 1 degree centigrade every 10 minutes. So theoretically, that gives him an extra 10 minutes in the water. The best comparison is the cormorant. So the cormorant heats itself up before it goes into the water. So if you measure its temperature, you can tell when it's thinking about going for a swim because its temperature starts to rise.
A normal person, if they were to jump into 0 degrees, they'd be incapacitated within seconds. The only way to swim in absolutely freezing cold water and survive is to acclimatize yourself. So now for many, many months, I've been swimming in water temperatures where we reduce the temperature colder and colder and colder. From 14 degrees all the way down to 7 degrees was manageable. But then down to 6 and 5, it then started becoming unbearable. It was just so painful. And the only way I could do this was by literally getting as aggressive as possible, and then with a huge amount of adrenaline, I would just dive into the water.
Swim! 20 seconds! 10 seconds to swim! 10! Ready? 5 seconds to swim! Red! Go! 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 Okay, hold on, Lewis. Nice start, nice start. Great stuff, nice. Nice, Lewis. Push it hard now, come on.
My aim is to try and break the world record for the most southern swim ever done. But also we want to try and collate as much scientific information about what happens to the human body in such extreme conditions. And for the scientists, obviously, this is an incredible opportunity to gain this information.
No one has been studied to this degree in the past in extreme cold water, because who would want to get into 5-degree water except Lewis?
I suppose there's no going back now. You sort of feel like Captain Scott on the way to Antarctica. It's a bit of a nervous feeling. So many emotions now, and absolute excitement, joy, happiness, fear, worry, everything all in one. Yeah.
I sometimes don't understand what really drives me and what pushes me to push myself so hard.
I'm really interested to see, can you swim 1 kilometre in 0 degrees centigrade water? Is it possible for a human to do that? The information we have is that most people fully clothed in water of about 5 degrees can expect to go about 100 meters.
God bless America.
Yeah, we never leave our men behind.
That's right. Unless it's a leopard seal.
Strength and honor.
I've been trying to eat as much as I can on this voyage. I'm putting in 5 meals a day. I'm trying to get as fat as possible. This is one sport where the fatter you are, the better it is for you.
My late father was a surgeon in the Royal Navy, and he sailed through the Drake Passage from the Atlantic into the Pacific Ocean on a number of occasions. And he said it was such a fearsome passage. So I'm expecting the worst.
The first explorer to get to the South Pole was Roald Amundsen, the Norwegian, and he got to the South Pole on the 14th of December. And so today I want to do the swim. I think it's a good luck omen. Antarctica is massive. It's the size of Africa or North America. And around the continent is all the sea ice. And in winter, the sea ice doubles in size. And now it's summertime,
The sea ice has retreated all the way up to the continent, and I'm going to be doing this swim right on the edge of the Antarctic Peninsula.
The enormity of this swim really sinks in very, very deep now when you start passing all these icebergs. I'd expected a lot of ice in the water, but not quite as much as this. It's daunting. We're now about 2 hours until the swim, so I'm just hoping that when we get to the swim site, there's a little bit less ice in the water. Otherwise, this is going to be, I think, impossible to swim in this type of ice.
Let's just start it over there. Okay.
And that's got a bit of slop on it, that doesn't. Which is another, for putting people on properly.
Okay.
What about between the berg and the rock?
Yeah, I think that it looked very pretty, didn't it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's not, and you've got the practical thing, you get boat beside you throughout the road, around this road. It's not out and through the iceberg.
So can you measure out 500 meters from here now?
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm going to start from exactly there.
Sure.
See there, Tim?
Yeah, you're going to get in the rocks right here.
Essentially, there are two main risks. The first one is the cold, getting so cold that you can't operate. The second risk is that presented by leopard seals.
2 years ago, a British diver was killed by one of these leopard seals. It literally grabbed her and dragged her down to the bottom of the ocean.
Antarctica is an unforgiving environment. If your planning, your preparation, your execution of the event are not right, without a shadow of a doubt you can die.
I'm going to attempt this swim according to international swimming rules. I have to swim in just a Speedo, cap and goggles.
2 minutes to swim! 2 minutes!
I'm so frightened as I stand on the rock and I'm waiting to do my swim, and everything just seems to be slowing down, and I'm getting more and more focused, and I'm frightened deep down, and you know, I can feel myself getting hotter and hotter and getting more aggressive and a little bit agitated. And we know from the previous tests which we've done that my core body temperature goes up and up and up, and it's just a Pavlovian response. I've been cold before and my body knows that I'm going to get cold, and what it does is it just turns on the heaters and turns on the aggression, and I've got to get in there hard, I've got to get in there fast. Just had to get to the first 100 meters done, and then I was able to get into my rhythm, and I was swimming as hard as I could, nice, long, powerful strokes. And I can see Tim next to me, and I'm just looking at his eyes, and all I'm doing is just looking at him. It's this incredible relationship whereby I'm putting my very life
in his hands. It's the ultimate trust. I trust him with everything. I know that he's going to keep me safe.
During the swim, I always have a board, and on it they write my core body temperature and my heart rate and the speed I'm going and how much further I've got to go. And suddenly they both stop looking at me, and they're both looking at the computer, and I wanted to know what on earth is happening. Has something drastic gone wrong? Do they need to pull me out the water? Has my heart rate dropped? Has my core body temperature plummeted? What is happening? I needed to know.
Stop fucking around and give me 650! 650!
Jonathan dropped the black pen, and for a period we were unable to communicate because we couldn't write on the board, and then it started snowing, and rightly Lewis got a little angry because he hadn't had information for about 90 seconds. At 800 meters, his temperature dropped for the first time below 38 degrees, so it went to 37.62. His stroke seemed to be getting shorter all the time, and he was getting this grimace in his face, which I'd not seen before.
This must be the most hostile environment I have ever swum in. The water is 0 degrees, and in the middle of the swim, it starts pelting with snow. Finally, Tim realized that the pen wasn't going to work, so he screamed and shouted me all the way to the end, and he was telling me, you know, you've got another 200 meters, another 100 meters, another 50 meters. You're there, Lewis, you're there. And it was just this wonderful feeling to clamber up the rock and to get a great big towel around myself, and that we've done it. We've actually done it. We've broken this world record.
Emotionally, it was a very tough swim for all of us because he was pushing the limits that we had not been through before.
It was as close to the edge as you can get. I am extremely tired. My body has taken a hell of a battering. My neck is not working properly, but we have to go out now and we have to fight as a team, okay? I can guarantee you in 5-10 years' time, somebody will come down here and smash my record, okay? So the only thing we are able to take away from here is the scientific data which you guys collect. Yeah, right.
So this system is unique in the world that it allows us very accurately to measure the body temperature of the swimmer and to transmit that information to the guys in the boat. In my view, it would be completely irresponsible to swim in cold water and to try to set records without this sort of equipment. If you don't know what the body temperature is of your swimmer every second, it's not safe to swim under these conditions.
The first aim was to break the world record for the most southern swim ever done in the world. And the second aim was to come back with as much scientific data as we could possibly. So we now need to do another swim to confirm our findings in the first swim. Can you just show me on a more detailed map where the possible landing sites will be?
This is the southern section, and the next thing we're doing is to go up through the kilometre channel.
Yeah, it's beautiful, eh?
Yeah, it's a wonderful place. We hope for icebergs there.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I don't. Okay. And then where do we go?
This is Deception Island.
Right.
It's a volcano where you can sail into the caldera.
Yeah.
And it's sheltered. It will probably not erupt.
In
in man's greed back in the 1920s and 30s. We plundered and pillaged this area, and we killed so many whales, and we dragged them into here. And just feeling this shudder go through my body to realize that this is really a whale's graveyard.
About 3 or so. It's going to be sort of like between 1 and 3 degrees. That's a probably safe way to describe it. It's like 2.5 here.
And the start point?
Is at the hut that derelict
British
abandoned.
Antarctic survey.
Yeah, the one that's been abandoned.
What on earth am I doing? Why am I doing this? It's such a pain, such a painful experience.
Prior to this, no comprehensive scientific studies have ever been done on humans in water below 7 degrees. And if you fall overboard in the middle of the North Atlantic in the middle of winter, you're going to be falling into water below 7 degrees.
Right, let's prepare to go, yeah? Take off the trousers.
99% of people exposed to 0 degrees water will die very quickly because they hyperventilate, they inhale water, they become confused, they can't coordinate the swimming, and they drown. So Lewis shows none of those problems. In fact, he can dive directly into ice-cold water, and that is what is unique. I question whether there's another person in the world who can do that, can dive into 0 degree water and continue swimming normally. We picked up from the boat that he was in serious trouble in the last 100 meters, because that was when his temperature started to drop. And my impression was he wasn't actually hearing what we were saying. And so I suspect he wasn't entirely conscious of what was going on at that point. Then we started to get a little bit anxious. And he got that same grimace of his face, and his stroke length was shortening right down. At the finish, we could see he was very cold because he started shivering almost as he got out the water.
I'm absolutely frozen. I just feel so sleepy.
What time is that? Write that down.
My jaw is locking because I'm so cold, because I've been shivering so much.
How are you, Lewis? Are you alright?
I can hear people talking, but I'm just getting colder and more sleepy. I can't believe I've swum so long. I've swum for 30 minutes in this freezing cold water.
Okay, hang in there, Lewis. Stay with it. Come on. What's that, Chris? What's this call? 4.6? Great. Okay, Lewis, shower's coming up. Relax. Okay, Lewis, relax, relax. Come on, nearly home, nearly home. How you doing, Lewis? Let's get you into the shower.
behind you. Okay, right behind you. Fine.
Okay. Hello? Okay, more? Okay. That's where you are.
I'm getting a little bit frightened now, and I can see on Tim's face that he's frightened. And when he's frightened, I get frightened.
Okay, breathe.
Sarah, just get in there.
Yeah, you're breathing cold air.
Within a very short time, his temperature dropped from 36 degrees to 34 degrees. So my concern there were that we had a medical emergency on our hands. Core is 33.6, it's stable, it's been stable for the last 3 minutes. Your general condition is now fine. You've reached the bottom and you're coming up. This is an epic. Yeah, definitely. Lewis was on the edge, and we perhaps didn't realize at the time that that's how close we'd come to the edge.
This place is so magical. Just to stand here and to look at this Garden of Eden in front of me, it's magical. It's such a privilege to be here. Through all these swims, I'm just becoming more and more aware of the impact man is having on our environment. Wherever I swim now, I can see man's footprint. That swim off Deception Island really did change me. I went in there as one person, and I came out at the end of those 30 minutes a completely different person.
The Deception Island swim was crucial to what came next in Lewis's life. We both realized that he'd pushed his body to the absolute limit under those conditions. For him to try to advance that record, for example, by trying to swim either further or in even colder conditions, would, I was convinced, produce only a fatal outcome. So what Lewis did next would have to serve a much bigger purpose than had been his original design.
Last year and a half, I've been campaigning here in London for the protection of the marine environment, and I've just swum the full length of the River Thames during our worst drought and been to see Tony Blair to tell him about how we need to protect the environment. I want to do a symbolic act which hopefully will shake those world leaders and get them to realize what's happening. They seem to be so preoccupied with everything else. Everything seems to be so much more important than the environment. But ultimately, the best place for me to campaign is not here in London. I want to go to the most northern place in the whole world, a place which, in the past 2 years, we've seen 23% of Arctic sea ice melt away, and I want to do a swim across what used to be a frozen landscape, and now it's a place which is rapidly unfreezing.
It shouldn't be possible to do a swim at the North Pole. It's been frozen over for millennia. And it's in an open patch of sea at the North Pole that I'm now going to try this swim. And I hope in some small way that this swim will inspire people to protect the environment. We really need to take urgent action now. We can't take action in 15 or 20 or 30 years' time and expect to solve this problem. The action is required now.
We've now arrived in Russia, and we're in the Russian port of Murmansk. And I've hitched a ride on a Russian icebreaker which is taking tourists to the North Pole. When I look around at these buildings, and they look so dreary and drab, it's like a eulogy to the Cold War and to our gross industrialization of the world.
just sailing out of harbour now, and it's at this stage when one can have a bit of a wobble mentally. Everything just looks so grey around here and looks so cold and utterly miserable. And when I think that in a week's time I'll be at the North Pole, and this place relatively will be like a tropical rainforest, it's very, very easy for your mind to start taking strain at this early stage.
I think we've traveled a journey with Lewis from very humble beginnings and humble goals to the point where now he is making a statement that the world is seeing. So for me, I'm still interested in the science and the physiology and the biology basically. But beyond that, I'm also really interested in the issue of climate change, which Lewis has awakened my mind to. And if we can make a statement that is picked up by the world and perhaps as a picture that becomes iconic to show that global warming is really happening and it wakes people up to do something about it, then we made an additional contribution way beyond the science.
Well, this is steep, isn't it? Oh, crumbs. You can't rely on these guys for anything, you know that. It's not great, but it's just going to have to do. Because we just got to get cold. Because it's been impossible to get off this ship and do all the training swims, I've done a few down in this swimming pool. But it's just to try and get me cold. I need to be cold each and every day so that when we get to the North Pole, it won't be such a radical shock to my system.
Almost 6 minutes now, come on, keep going. We're going to do 20 minutes now, Lewis. 20 minutes of hard swimming, come on.
Primarily, my role is Lewis's mind coach and motivator. I've been working with Lewis for approximately 5 years or so, accompanying him on various expeditions around the world. And we've really found that, particularly for these extreme events that he undertakes, when he steps up there, he's got to be in peak condition, not just physically, but also mentally. Another thing we work on very carefully is Lewis's focus. Before he enters the water, and indeed while he's in the water itself. He has a choice every single moment during that process of what to focus on. He can focus on the fear, the cold water, the pain, etc. Or he can choose to focus on something more empowering, such as the reason why he's doing the swim, the people that inspire him, the things that inspire him about the swim. So we work to control his focus, to control his thinking during the period leading up to the swim and during the swim itself.
I think the body is just a slave to the mind. And so Lewis's success is due to his mental strength. And failure is just not an option in his life. And he's going to do this thing until he succeeds.
I've invited Jürgen Amundsen to come on this expedition and to ski next to me. He's the great-grand-nephew of Roald Amundsen, the famous Norwegian explorer, and I'm sure that he's going to really get me going on this swim.
I think he really wanted to have somebody from the Amundsen family on the trip, as it's always been a big battle between the British and the Norwegian in terms of polar exploration, and the Norwegians have a track record of beating the Brits in the Arctic and Antarctic and so on, and I think, as he says himself, that he will never quit with me next to him.
There is absolutely no ways I'm going to give up in front of a Norwegian, let alone somebody who is a relative of the famous Roald Amundsen. I did a swim 2 years ago at the bottom of the world down in Antarctica, where the water was 0 degrees. And at the time I thought, gosh, that is absolutely freezing. I can't imagine anything colder. But by comparison, Antarctica is mild. This water will be minus 1 degree centigrade. It doesn't sound like a big difference, but it's the difference between a hot shower and a cold shower. It's a frightening difference, and the difference on my body is also incredible. As soon as I dive in, I absolutely just freeze up like an Egyptian mummy. I can barely move.
There's a climate change analogy that just a small rise in global temperatures will have such a significant impact on all of us.
The other difference from the swims in the Antarctic was that Lewis was swimming in perhaps 2.5 meters. But now, unfortunately, the depth is going to be 4 kilometers. So that does add an extra risk component in that if something were to go radically wrong, he could have walked out of the water, whereas now he has to swim to the edge, or we have to go and catch him. And so that adds another element of danger to these swims. I think because I believed in him and no one else did, that then became the defining basis for our relationship. And initially I didn't understand what my level of involvement was. And one only realizes subsequently that with each swim you are actually taking full responsibility for his life. And that only dawned on me later, and then it became a little more daunting with each swim.
Tim, I want to thank you for bringing me here, and for training me, and for believing in me. And if something does go wrong, I want everybody to know that I took this decision of my own free will, and I knew what I was doing. I don't want anyone to ever point a finger at you, because you're my most incredible friend.
Trying to spend as much time in shorts and t-shirts, try and get as cold as possible now to prepare my body for the shock of the North Pole swim. I feel like a lunatic here on the front deck of the ship, standing here in my shorts and t-shirt, but that's what's needed to prepare my body for the cold. We'd just seen our first polar bear, a mother and a cub. It was the most beautiful sight one can imagine. Just to see them play on the ice. Magical, magical. And to think that in 30, 40 years they could become extinct, it's a very, very frightening thought. We're finally at the North Pole. This is months and months and months of dreaming to get here, and years of training and planning and preparation, and in a couple of hours' time I'm going to get in here and do my swim. It's all a little bit frightening, but and emotional. Yep.
2 days ago I attempted a test swim and my fingers froze. They expanded and the cells actually burst. Today I still don't have any feeling in my fingers, and I have to do the swim. And on top of that, it's the 15th of July. I never wanted to swim on this day, This is the day my father died a number of years ago, and so it's all weighing very heavily on my shoulders.
I feel myself getting hotter and hotter.
This is all mental now. I feel ready for this swim. I've been sitting with David now, and we've been in the cabin and we've been talking to each other, and I've broken the swim now down into little chunks. I'm going to swim from one flag to the next flag, and I'm just going to think about all those people who've sacrificed so much for me to be here today. Tim has just put on the chest harness, and I could feel his hand shaking as he put it on, and I could feel myself sweating. And I really trust in my team. I trust Tim Noakes with my very life.
Okay. All good.
The water is minus 1.7, so it's nearly 2 degrees colder than the water in Antarctica. I'm going to try swim for a kilometre, and I think this is going to take me around about 20 minutes. It just looks so surreal to see all these nations' flags here in this mist. The aim of the flags is to try and break down this swim into manageable chunks. So all I'm going to do is swim from flag to flag to flag.
And the Russian flag represents the Russian polar bear guards. They're here to protect me from polar bears. Polar bears can be very, very dangerous animals, and in the event that one comes towards me, they're going to shoot in the air and try and keep the animal away.
The Russians are some of the best cold water swimmers in the world. I find them so motivating. And before any race I have with a Russian, I always square off next to him. And so I've asked the polar bear guards now to come up in front of me, and I'm going to stand there. I need to get aggressive now.
I'm ready. Are they ready?
Yes, everyone's ready. Okay.
I've got to get my mind into very controlled aggression.
I'm going to listen to their last song now.
Okay.
Five minutes to swim! 5 minutes to swim! I'm going to do a face-off with Amundsen. Tell him not to worry. Aim with the Russian, okay?
Okay.
Cap on. Volume up. Goggles. Russian. Bring me the Russian. Time. 2 minutes to swim. 2 minutes to swim.
I need to be focused. No human has ever done a swim in this water temperature before. We really don't know what's going to happen to me.
And we have to be confident, we have to be courageous.
Connect the thing up.
Flipped in and ready to go.
You ready to go? Do it. Go for it. Get on. Go, 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 go.
Take 1 stroke, 2 strokes, 3 strokes. I can barely breathe. It feels like somebody has grabbed me from behind and squeezing all the air out of my lungs, and water is going down the back of my throat, and all I'm saying to myself is, just breathe, Lewis, just breathe. There's been one voice which has been saying, Lewis, you're doing the right thing. You're fulfilling your destiny. And then there's the other voice which says, don't con yourself, Lewis. You could very easily lose your hands, or even worse, lose your life. And I've just been trying to squeeze out that second voice. All our destinies will be determined here in the Arctic, because when the Arctic melts, it's going to affect everybody.
Take the goggles off! Take the goggles off! Take the goggles off! Yes, slowly, slowly. It's off. Yeah, don't worry about them. Always fine. Okay, Bruce, you go here. Okay. These are fluffies, let them just go. Come, Liz. Come. Okay, take the shoes. Quickly, take the shoes.
Well done, lads, you did it! You did it, lads! You did it! You did it, man! Well done.
How on earth did you do that?
Against the current, Donna. You did it against the current.
This swim across the North Pole really has changed me. I now feel so invigorated. I feel that I've earned the right to go to world leaders and to tell them what's happening up here. We can protect this place. We can cut our carbon emissions. We can leave this world in a better state than which we received it.
I've now been with Lewis on 5 swims, and this was undoubtedly the most wonderful of them all. And it was very special because of the distance we had to travel to get there, the fact that the swim was completely flawless and went exactly as we wanted it to. But finally, it's because the statement that Lewis has made, and being in this environment and seeing how fragile it is, and hopefully taking a message to the world that it's each of our responsibilities to protect this most fragile environment.
We live in a world that's increasingly devoid of heroes. And I think we need people who show that with discipline and courage and foresight, you can achieve whatever your goal might be. And that's what Lewis shows.
All right, let's go, let's go, let's go!